Right, thank you, and we're live. Thank you, everybody, and I welcome everybody online to today's council meeting. We have had the council prayer this morning at finance and performance and an allocation of funding meetings there. So we have done that. I have an apology from Councillor Brian Carter for today's meeting being offshore. Would somebody like to move that apology be accepted? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Loudon seconding. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. We don't have a public forum today. Will item 4, the conflict of interest declarations, does anybody wish to declare a conflict of interest at this stage of proceedings? No, thank you. I'll move on. In terms of item 5, the confirmation of order of business, I will take it as the order of business listed in the agendas other than moving under reports for decision 10.1, the declaration of a new Southern Ward councillor. And I would welcome, first of all, there's a number of people, some of you online might be able to see this, but there are a number of supporters of the successful candidate Paul Charland. Welcome to Chambers. This is a very big deal. And in a second, we'll make him formally councillor. Please feel free to take photographs for the family records. So in order of that, we will move to page 43 in terms of that declaration process. And I will note that in doing this, I normally don't wear the chain of office at every council meeting, but it is an important occasion. So Paul, if you would like to come forward, please. You have been declared by the returning officer to be the successful candidate to join council, and I welcome you to that. However, there is a little bit of process. First of all, we need to go through, if you would like to read the declaration, and here it is here. So if you'd like to read that.
I, Paul Charland, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interest of the Rangitikei district the powers, authorities and duties vested or imposed upon me as a councillor for the Rangitikei District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And you need to sign some paperwork. So if you would like to put your signatures to those two positions.
Just up there.
Thank you. Formally welcome you to council. And Paul, if you'd like to take 20 or 30 seconds, is there anything you wish to say?
I'll do it.
This is something that doesn't happen with all councillors because it's usually quite a large formal occasion, but is there anything you'd like to?
Just quickly, Your Worship, fellow councillors and staff, I'd like to thank you for making me welcome, and that's the first thing, and secondly for letting me in on what I'm actually in for. I'm quite sure. It's a very proud moment, and I hope that I can fulfil the challenge that everybody's put to me, and thank you all very much, and a special thanks to my family.
Very nice.
I can pin that over now.
Is it spelled right?
So there's meetings.
Quite right, members of the family and council. He doesn't know what he's in. The responsibilities of councillors are managing what is a $45 million budget and making some fairly difficult decisions at times. So welcome to that place. And I'll just wait till my chief executive is able to reinstall himself.
Thanks, Lee.
So moving to item number 6, in terms of confirmation of the minutes. And by the way, members of the family, you're welcome, and you're welcome to stay as long as you wish. That is up to you, But please don't feel it is rude if you say we're here for that specific reason and it's time to disappear. That's fine. Right, looking for alterations, amendments to the council meeting at 28th March. Looking for page 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Are there any amendments sought? No, would somebody like to so move? Thank you, councillor Lamb. Councillor, need someone else, councillors? Councillor Wong seconding, those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you very much. Moving to 7.1, the follow-up actions from the previous meetings. Would somebody first of all like to just move to receive them? Councillor Rakawa moving to receive, councillor Dalgety seconding, those in favour? Aye. Those against, carried. Any issues raised within those?
Yeah, 18.
Councillor Duncan,
Yes,
councillor Dalgety, councillor Lambert, councillor Duncan.
thank you. Once again, I just would like to give some feedback around the Otara Bridge. We had, a week before the postponement date was posted on our webpage, which is, I understand, not our responsibility of our council, but we post the information that comes to us from MDC. There was a request from the community to know if there was going to be a delay, because they could see on the ground that things were not progressing. And they were assured it was well on time. And then a week later, it was posted that it was delayed, and this is causing ongoing angst and, impacts on our businesses.
Take your point, councillor. What do you want staff to do about that? It's a question.
If possible, in that case, it would be helpful for the community if such feedback could be brought to them in a more timely manner. If our staff could say to MDC, who are leading the project, that in fact businesses are not able to react as quickly as their information coming out would demand. And it was quite obvious to the locals that the delay was going to be imminent, but without an official response from council, they actually didn't have a leg to stand on with the businesses they then deal with down the business tube, if you like. So they couldn't say to their truckies, well, this is likely to happen. And schools, etc., who rely on that sort of information coming out in a timely manner.
Thank you. So staff, is that adequate?
Yes. I have to say we've had limited success to date about doing that. I totally understand and concur with what councillor Duncan's saying, but I'm just not sure how we burrow back into that process.
Councillor Dalgety, is this about this issue?
Can I just ask, at the first meeting, there was list of emails of interested parties, do they get, send anything directly via email?
Up to my knowledge. I don't know.
Thank you. Look, I'll leave this sitting at the moment in the lap of Councillor Giachetti. You also asked us something else, or was that relating to this?
Yes, that we have got the key stakeholder group. That we're also not taking advantage of their connection. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Councillor Lambert and then Councillor Loudon. Councillor.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, on item 2, the sign, we haven't got the little, we've only got one set of those. So the whole sign reads buses only. This sign is not for trucks, cars and motorcycles, cameras operating. Is that what the whole sign reads? Item 2. Yep.
4 signs have been
Follow
ordered.
action.
So there certainly were signs with an illustration of a truck with a cross through it.
Okay.
But they were not, they have been taken by somebody, they're not there.
Oh, they've been
So these
written.
are the new signs that are being sought now, that have been ordered.
Right. It'll state there.
That's what it's gonna state. yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, just it didn't have the other thing at the end of it.
I'll go Councillor Loudon, Councillor Okawa, Councillor Dalgety, Councillor.
Item 10, the Bulls Museum rental. I know that it's been completed and that other like facilities have a peppercorn rental situation. Does that indicate that the Bulls Museum will have the same treatment?
Yes, that's correct. So I think the question was around the $1 payment. And the only other similar one is for the Hunterville Town Hall, because most of the other buildings are owned by the different clubs, etc. And these, it's the same condition.
Good, thank you.
We'll deal with item 10 while it's been raised. In terms of the question is, what other properties are rented and what is the rental amounts? So for instance, we have a closed landfill, for example, just out of Marton. That was certainly a rental position. There have been other rentals, including the area around Hunterville that has previously come to council. Is there a list of all of these and the time that the rental position needs to be either renewed or re-looked at?
Sorry, that was our misunderstanding. We were looking at buildings that we were saying, but yes, there is bare land around and they are varying. Some have gone out for tender. So it depends on the price that has come back in for tender and that type of thing.
I'm not sure who originally put this in, but when it says whoever put this in, they're probably also looking at rentals other than buildings.
That was Councillor Carter.
Can we leave that with you so that we do get the process around that?
Yes.
Anything else from anybody on item 10? No, go to Councillor Okawa.
Kia ora, Your Worship. Number 13, just clarity on, is it the ITS software you're looking for, the capability, is it for the cameras?
I can reply to that, Your Worship. It's really the bigger picture of what do we do with CCTV footage? How do we store it? How do we use it? We have to tick all those boxes, not just for one installation, but for everything. And that's what that was talking about.
Thank you.
Anything else for anybody else on round 13? No, Councillor Dalgety, I think you were next.
Item 1, I just wanted to confirm that NDC have got, but this in their budget as well.
Well, I'm not certain going forwards, but I would imagine they do.
Through the chair, I know in the email from Mr. Jones, he said it was going in their long-term plan.
The question, a further question from me around this. The checking of the bridge is only one part of the budget that was tabled going forward, there are a whole lot of other things within that budget going forward as well. Sections for, I think there was reference to strengthening of one pier, for example. It would be interesting to see whether they are in our long-term plan budgets, other than just a checking of the facility, whether there are budgets including work to be done.
I'm not sure if
Through you, your worship, I think the answer to that is we've asked consultants to come up with a detailed maintenance plan for the bridge. And the budget that's identified in that plan is in our schedule of works and obviously in NDC's as well.
So I agree.
So according to that schedule.
We do have that budget and full schedule, so we're presuming all of that work is in our long-term plan. Yeah, so what do you say? Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Item 11, I just wanted to say that the agreement that has been signed with the Friends of Taihape, the feedback I've received from that group is that it's simple, it's straightforward and satisfactory, and they're very happy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that is completed anyway, but you're just commenting on it. Thank you. Anything further, councillors? No, thank you. I'll move to the Mayor's report, 8.1. I will certainly take it as read. I noticed the reports to zone from Councillor Rakawa and Dalgety and Duncan, separate to that. And what I'd like to do is tie this in with that report. So I'll give you a second to think about that. I'll take it as read, but there are a couple of other things. The first is not listed in my attendance. A number of working bees, for example, around the district. But I'd just like to comment on one of them. The work that is being done out in the B and C dams. I've attended a number of those working parties, but I'm really just highlighting it because the new boardwalk has virtually been completed. Literally thousands of hours of community work has gone into that. And Marie and Greg and Dave Smith, for example, David Smith, I should say, have put an enormous amount of work into that. Along with the professional builders who have said that they will give their time free of charge to members of the community. The next one, I attended only yesterday road controlling authorities meeting in Wellington. There were a handful of mayors there, largely people that have been on focus groups with me in Wellington on roading. I will provide a detailed report on that meeting subsequently. Have time to format it and type it for today, or have it typed for today. But it would be one of the best meetings I've ever attended on roading ever. The minister spoke and he gave a very, very clear direction going forward around what is currently being proposed, what they're going to bring to the table in terms of charging of vehicles in the future, and the work streams. Nicole Rosie from Wakakatahi was another speaker, and she clearly identified that, first of all, one, they, like every other government department, are obliged to find 7.5% savings around administration, and they're well into that work now, but absolutely said we have been given very, very good steering orders and direction from government by the minister, and they appreciated that. I should have started with this one. Congratulations, Paul, on your appointment. Yeah, great result for you, and we welcome you to council. Equally, I'd like to appreciate the work that Lakon Maihana has done in terms of the Ratana Community Board. He has, as I understand it, tendered his resignation, So that will take us back into a by-election process for Ratana. These things happen. People change their lives and all sorts of reasons, and we just need to accept that as part of life. But it's appropriate that we thank him for his work. Rather than just waiting for questions around my report and attendance, I would like to move first of all, Councillor Rokawa, do you wish to speak to your report from Zone? It is included in the order papers. But do you wish to speak to it and highlight it or in any shape or form? I think page 58, is it?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I will take it as read and just thank the council very much for the opportunity to be able to attend our GNZ conference. And just to highlight, one of the highlights for me was the, and I think it also is because it also will help relate to our marae, was the arc flood barriers. There was lots of things that we saw up there, but that was one thing that was a highlight for me. The flood disaster management gears that they've got, and it could be very helpful for us, not as a district, but also I was looking at the marae as well, could be very helpful for us. So there were a couple of men, Benny, that talked about flood disaster management. Their gears that they had were made of, I'm going to say tarpaulin because that's what was on the front of the cover. But seeing those bladders, seeing what they do and how they can be quickly set out, as opposed to one of the bladders was, it took 4.5 minutes to fill. Yeah. And that was the equivalent of 160 sandbags. And there's no contamination, you know, what to do with the sand afterwards. So I really thought that it was highlight, that I took that away mostly, and that it would help our marae as well as our. So yes, thanks.
Thank you. Questions from councillors to Councillor Rakawa. And from me, a couple of things. Firstly, thank you for the way in which you spoke to the issue over Maori wards. That was well done, well received. But you found value in going to Zone?
Yes, absolutely. Lots of things there, but yeah, did. Eye-opening.
Thank you. Councillor Dalgety.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to go. I think I expressed how I feel in my report. I think there's two things that are at the top of mind for me still. I was lucky enough to sit with dinner with Nick Pete, and you know, he just said, sorry, Nick is ex-Horizons and has gone in across as the new CE, someone I have always hugely respected. And he just said, make sure that your early warning systems are working and everyone knows what the system is. And I don't know if anyone caught the news last night, but that poor woman who lost her daughter, and every day she's thinking about, if we were told earlier, we could have got out. So I'd just like to, so I was really wanting Hunterville, because we didn't have our system sorted, and I'd like to acknowledge Paul Chafe. And since I've been to Zone, and he's come to our committee meeting, and that was really well received. The other thing I am worrying about is our regional relationships. And we see in Hawke's Bay, Wairoa, that those Central Hawke's Bay, Hastings, Napier, Wairoa, Gisborne are very, very well connected as a region now. It's a very positive outcome of the disasters they've been through. And they'd already done their regional work around Three Waters. So they were very connected there. And I just feel we are really way behind in this space. And I'm worried that we're not connecting, whether it's across horizons for our three waters, or as our relationship changes with Mineral Two, we're a little council, we've got to connect up with other councils, where is that gonna be, and we need to really focus on building that relationship, in my mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Likewise, I very much appreciated the opportunity to go, and was driven beautifully by His Worship the Mayor. And I'd also like to mahi my fellow councillors. It's I felt we had a good little team there of the numbers that were there, and Kevin also. It was very good having those little points of contact during that. Back to your home team, and then you sort of get spread out and got across the numbers. But I particularly liked around the regions, just those little snapshots where the mayors or CEs or deputy mayors would give their little bit of what they were up to and what they were most proud of. And that was really inspiring, and also, it was inspiring. Thank you. What was the other thing? Oh, I did actually take a lot away from the water safety people. And I'm sorry, I haven't written that down in my report. I think someone else covered that. But I ended up having dinner with them, and then was contacted by one of them. And just with our 5 big rivers in this district, it just seemed to me that we could look at that, bringing their expertise into our district, at least from an educational perspective in the first place, but potentially also just breaking the district up into 5 places. 5 maybe are using our community boards and committees or whatever to address signage, or just raising awareness, especially with the stats around drowning. So once again, thank you very much. And it was nice to see our mayor as co-chair of that process, with Craig Little out the front. Thank you.
Just to tidy up that, would somebody like to move that 11.1, the recommendation that those reports be received? Thank you, Councillor Loud and Councillor Lambert. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Going back to my report and attendance at various functions. Any questions around that? Councillor Hira, Councillor Dalgata, Councillor.
Well, just a comment to Mahi Te Laquan for the work that he's done on behalf of this council as when he was an employee, but also he's also been the Kidatana Community Board member, but also a member on track. So I look forward to the process that will go forward with a new track member. The other thing that I'd like to mention within your report has got to do with, I'm interested to know what the next steps forward for the process around the status of the Māori wards within this council. And I'm looking forward to see how that gets onto our table and what that discussion will look like. And just also just a mihi to those people to the 3 girls that have been away with you at the hui, they had a fantastic report.
Yes, there were some of us on a Zoom call just the other day around this, and I will ask Gordon, do you wish to comment?
I have actually mentioned this in the CE's report, but I'm happy to raise it here as well. So what I intend to do is bring you a paper to the May council meeting, and that will outline the options that are available to us, and it's up to council then to decide which way they want to go. And we've also received, if council does want to go with the poll in terms of the voting documents next year, we've also just received the cost to do that. So all that will be covered in the May meeting.
Thank you. I think Councillor Loudon, you had a question.
I'd just like to thank Councillor Rakawa, Duncan and Dalgety for those reports. They're very good. It does highlight the need for us as a council to move forward on civil defence issues, and connectivity around Three Waters. I think our council was very lucky to get away with what happened in Gabrielle. It was quite a close thing for the Rangitikei River. Civil defence has been brought to the public attention. We need to actually move firmly on civil defence as well.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillor Dalgety?
I'm just, interested, in broad terms, you talked about the, number of attendees, particularly in the Northern District. And I just wondered how many people you considering got, like, so how many people approximately attended those meetings?
You mean which meetings?
The Amatani and,
Yeah.
obviously several
So-
people got.
So, yeah, thank you for that. I always look at it more as rather than pure numbers, the percentage of people in that community. For instance, if you just look at raw numbers, you would have to say that Koitiata, Scott's Ferry, the biggest. And a correspondingly very high percentage of those communities there. Omatani numbers were significantly lower, but again, a very high percentage of that community were represented or made apologies to it. But I would have to say the engagement in terms of Marton, tie-happy bulls on a per capita base was the other end of the spectrum. It seemed, as has been the past, that when we get out of the main centres, the attendances increase. And that's not completely fair because there's been a social media presence that has worked. But I'm talking about the actual meetings and discussion with people, with councillors. And absolutely, I thank and report all councillors that attended, and I paid particular recognition to Councillor Duncan. Councillor, I thought the work that you did in attendance and also ringing people, I absolutely appreciate. So, job well done. Anything further? Councillor Hero.
I'd just like to make a comment regarding the attendance of councillors to Hui. And I'm making this comment because of something that got brought up last week by a member of the public in the submission. And I notice on so every month, well, every Hui, we get a list of what meetings that councillors attend and don't attend. And I was very disappointed, I'd like to say it, and I'd like to say it now, of feedback that had come through from one of the submitters around me in particular, my attendance at meetings. What I'd like to say is that the Huis that person has no idea of what I do outside of council. They have no idea of the workload that I have in my community commitment, and I'm not happy with what was put into that Hui submission. So I'm putting that on the table now, just so that whether anything comes of it, I don't know whether anything will come of it, but I don't think that's right. And I'm not happy about it at all.
It was a conversation that I think I shut down. The general public have a right to know who attends council functions and council meetings. That is an absolute right. And if a member cannot attend because they are on other council business, then there should be a process that they're aware of that. But in terms of whether they're not attending because of some other cause, that is up to the individual as to their time allocation. But they're still answerable for it. And that's unfortunate, but that's a reality in life. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Piki Kia ora. I'd like to just go on record and say that your The amount of work that you do outside of council for your community is to be commended. And I do not believe that your commitment to your community and the work and the other parties that you serve through Moko Pātea services should in any way be questioned. And I do believe that they add a significant amount of value to our council table. So I just want to go on record and say that whilst the attendance may not show it, that is through naivety of understanding the level of work that you do in the community. So I'll leave that at that.
And I think we probably all have that sentiment. Further questions on my report?
No questions. And I've got no problem at all. It's the way that the person had put that together.
And
That's what, if I was to look at what, at our attendance list today, do you know what I mean? You look at the attendance list today. So what I would like to know is whether, she made a beeline into that. Is she going to be, is that person going to be beelining into everything? And I've got no problem with people asking. Let people know when I'm an apology, as we all do. Thank you. I just wanted that to go on the record to say that that's what was said.
thank you. Any further questions on the report? First of all, I'll move the receipt of my report, looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Hero seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. There is a further recommendation in the report for consideration around council and the Ratana. You have a motion you wish to put forward?
Okay, a quick couple of questions of the staff, which I do believe will lead to a motion and will directly answer. So first of all, a little bit surprised that this didn't come to an earlier meeting today when we had some funding rounds, because it would have absolutely fitted into that space. There may be some reasons why it didn't, but I would note that under a decision that was earlier made of the Community Initiatives Fund, that there was a carryover of approximately $1,500 or $1,600. This event would absolutely fit into that space. And I would wonder if it didn't cause too much grief, seeing as there was an earlier decision made to carry that $1,500 through into the next financial year, whether or not that should not be an appropriate amount to put into recommendation two, because I believe had it been received in that funding round, which is the most appropriate place for it, it may well have had the support from the committee. So I'm wondering if that can be done. And if it could be, I would recommend that that amount be the amount to support.
Just in terms of process though, you've got an issue because you've got something on the books that puts it forward, so you'd have to revoke that, which was a finance.
I thought that might be the case, so hence why asking the
I
question.
was going to say exactly that. So there'd be need to be a revocation of that when it came to council as a recommendation. That would be a process. And to my mind, if you decided to put a sum of money of any nature towards this, it could be subsequently, that money could potentially be used. But it would need clarification against the first principles of the resolution to start with. So I'd prefer to treat this as a separate issue. Wouldn't you?
Yes.
In terms of process, have I got it right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if essentially somebody is going to have to move, that we either don't do or don't fund this.
I believe we should fund it to the value of $1,500.
And if we're seconded to that, you wish to speak to the resolution?
I'll speak to the recommendation. I think, like I said earlier, now that point's been clarified, and I did expect that, as there had already been a previous decision made, that we might find ourselves in that position. This does fit absolutely 100% within our events, community initiatives and funding schemes round. It's disappointing that it didn't come to us in that round, and perhaps some feedback to the organisation could be along that line. It would have been a lot neater and cleaner had it done that way. I believe that the funding can be found within our council coffers to do that, whether it's by way of revoking today's earlier decision at a later stage, just to make it nice and tidy and clean. But I wouldn't want to see this organisation held up until that decision was potentially made. So I would recommend what I've put forward at $1,500 worth of value.
Any other speakers?
And I'm happy to support.
Two speakers for, councillor Maughan.
I'm going to speak against it, only that I haven't got anything to back myself up, but in the fact that I think we had one of these come through for a girl. I just probably need some advice with it, what we did with her. I'm trying to look through the minutes. Girl from Taihape that wanted some funding to go overseas. And I don't know, I can't remember what I don't know if we gave her anything because of the fact that it was an unbudgeted item and it wasn't the right forum for that sort of thing. That's only worthy cause, but the only reason I'd speak against it, because I think we've already set a precedent.
Yeah, there have been reunions and celebrations, centennial celebrations that council have funded. And this is for an organisation rather than an individual. Just in terms of clarification. Further speakers, we've had two for, one against. Councillor Duncan.
I'd like to speak for it. I don't like unbudgeted expenses, but potentially, as Councillor Wilson has pointed out, there may be funds in the coffers that we could wriggle. But on the proviso that we give feedback to these sorts of organisations, that we have proper funds that they can apply for. I think that given the previous meeting, I think that we need to socialise how people should apply for these events, funds, etc., better, because I think that applications come to us, it's very difficult when they are lacking vital information such as budgets. And there have been workshops held in the past where the council has held workshops to show people how to do funding applications, and I think it's actually probably quite timely that we bring that back to our communities so that we don't have to be conflicted with something like this, which obviously we should be funding.
Any further speakers against? No, right to reply?
Quite, Your Worship.
The vote, those in favour? Those against, carried. Thank you very much. Moving to item 9, the Chief Executive's report. I'll move first of all the Chief Executive 9.1. We will tend to move it somewhere else, but let's see where we get to. Chief Executive.
I'll move it somewhere else. You just want me to do it myself one day.
I know I have to. Thank you, councillors. I'll just step through the report like we normally do and ask for any questions on either section 2 or section 3. Sorry, heading was missed off section 2. That should have said events held across council facilities. Section 3 is staff, these have changed, but staff movement. So in March, just outlining one new employee and farewell a couple of employees. Section 4, the health and safety wellbeing dashboard. If there's any comments, questions on that, Sharon is in the room.
So anybody questions running through to the end of 4? No, please push on.
Okay, thank you. And just an advice notice there about the Rangitikei name alteration. So those letters have been sent to all those councils. At this stage, I'm unsure if there's any response. We will follow up that anyway. There's an update on the local water done well. It's covered more in an attachment to that one.
Your Worship, sorry if I could interrupt there. Is that going to be addressed, that item separately, or are we addressing that item now? Because I do have a couple of questions on. How would you like that one to proceed?
Ask a question.
Yeah, do you wish to give us any advice on this?
So specifically on number 6, the local water done well. Okay, so reading the letter, and it's quite detailed, but there's a couple of things which I think do, in actual fact, cross over a little bit, and I want to seek some clarification. One of them was an understanding of what our three water asset network is. Is it my understanding that we did a significant amount of work in that space under the previous Three Waters legislation? So, or are we having to redo that work again as part of this letter that has been indicated letters received from government?
To you, Your Worship, Yeah, we have to do the work again, and really what the difference is in our previous 10-year plan and asset management plan and all the rest. There was certainty that the asset would not be ours after the 1st of July 2024. So we had a very short-term view of money to be spent and how to look after it. So that's changed considerably. Now we have a full 10-year plan, a full asset management plan. It's quite a different picture now.
The question I was asking was specifically the one that was asked of DIA around, was it asset condition or value of asset? I'm just wondering, is this the same work being done twice?
So I can try to
Yeah.
jump in and answer that. So the reality is that a lot of work has been done, but has been done under different parameters as well. So some people have all of their asset management in their long-term plans, some don't have it at all. And so there's about 3 different sets of figures, and what's trying to be done is rationalise those into the most appropriate and meaningful way, because otherwise you're comparing different sets of figures with different sets of figures. So from our point of view, my understanding is that the Rangitikei District Council has done an asset management plan on the 10 years. So that is not totally consistent with what the DIA had got, which is different figures that we're not quite sure how to rationalise those, which are different figures to which was provided by the Communities for Local Democracy. So different people have had different, I think you as a council have been pretty open and honest of that all the way. So I don't think your figures, except for the ones that DIA haven't as much to. So in terms of reworking work, it's not being redone again. There's differences, or from our point of view, but there's different approaches taken by different councils that are having to rework.
Could I supplementary comment further, because it is all directly, and that's good to hear. The question I asked, so further in the letter, it states that if the work is not done, that the government would effectively employ people to do it and charge us for it. So what I'm really trying to understand is what is at this early stage of this engagement, are we confident that we have the figures, have the numbers, have the staff to supply? And if there is a concern that we're not, is that something we need to consider as a group of governors about our ability to staff and get this together? That's really where I'm leading to.
What the Rangitikei District Council's view is that we're pretty well off. So there might be individuals that are asking for more information, and some of that's going through the audit. But remember, some of that or some of the other councils has not been done. And have they got the resources to be able to do it or not is the question.
Thank you. If I could just add to that quickly, that also is specific. We need to do a proposal to the DIA or to the government as to how we're going to create a CCO or some form of utility that will run this. And what they really want is for people not to sit around and do nothing. And that they could step in and say, all right, we'll get people to do that on your behalf, but we'll charge you for that. So us as a region are working really hard at the moment to almost preempt that. So we are collecting the right numbers. We are looking at it in the right way. So I think what Kevin is saying is correct. We are in a good position in that space.
So just to finish that report, throughout the Horizons region, we come into the council next month. And so that's a standard report of which we're going to have some ideas that feed into that as well. But then the council, in a political governance sense, will need to give some direction as to who we want to be aligned with. And that's not easy at the moment. And what we're trying to do is get some figures together that gives you an indication of what it would mean for each one. And so that's what will bring. And I take Councillor Fee's point, the more that you're talking to other councils, the better off we'll probably be. But don't know who that alignment will be.
Councillor Marton.
Saying, yeah, on 6, how much money from the Better Off funding have we still got to spend? And also, when it says retain their existing allocation of Better Off funding, does that mean there's still more Better Off funding to come, or have we got our allocation?
No, there's been the allocation made. We haven't received it all yet as we're working through some of those. But to our knowledge, none of our funding has been recalled. So some of the government has required some councils to hand back or are looking at that hand back. to date, we haven't been approached about handing any of our allocated funds that we have yet to pick up.
Oh, yeah, because 6.2 says it clarifies that the existing allocation.
For those on there, understanding these processes is really difficult. Because, for instance, there was going to be a latter tranche of funding to be released to all councils. That has been withdrawn in total by government.
That's what I wanted to clarify, because it said the existing allocation,
Yeah.
whether that was the historic one or what was planned going forward.
Yeah, so that has been withdrawn by government. The problem is that I would have to say, and I'm even quite comfortable saying in this arena, some of the councils haven't been particularly open and transparent around their position with regard to their three water assets or the work that will be required within the plans going forward to achieve compliance. So, you know, we have one council saying that the magnitude of the work that we require is of such a scale that it will need government direction and government input. There are other councils at the other end of the extreme who are just saying we don't have the funds and we can't really illustrate this position. So I would have to say that as a collective for the Horizons region, we don't know who is likely to be in. We've got an indication, but we don't know who is likely to be in the final mix of councils working together. Because some councils may look to seek alliances outside of the Horizons area. And we are behind the 8 ball compared to many other districts because there's been a lack of conversation, especially between governors. It's been better in terms of the operational arms and chief executives and senior staff than it has been with governors. Councillor Loudon.
Just around that, has our council initiated any conversations with anybody else? And secondly, has Horizons framed how we might move forward with their councils?
Fair question. I wrote a letter to the other councils within the Horizons area and emailed by email, not letter, saying that in my view, we should have been engaging much earlier and we need to engage now. That was disregarded. A number of councils said, oh, well, you know, let's wait until we understand exactly what government are wanting. We still don't absolutely have clear knowledge from government. We have had some meetings, but in my view, it's been short.
Just to add to that, and the regional chiefs and which is mayors and chief executives, that is on the agenda all the time as to working together, and there's different, and that it's fair to say that it's like a moving feast as to who's considering what. And we did have a meeting early on with Wanganui at one stage, but collectively that has been the general direction of the group within the Horizons areas that we should look at our area together and maybe some of our adjoining collectives as to whether there's any advantage, because it makes a huge difference as to whether you get a large population base next door because it spreads the load. But you've got the extremes here of Ruapehu, which is very few, sparse and not much money, and Palmerston with a lot of population and a lot of debt coming on board. But even in something like that, you could consider whether some of that debt comes into the CCE or they stay apart, or it's private developers, or public-private partnership. So there's a whole range, and it's fair to say it's moving in different directions. But the government has come in with a direction that there could be regulation if people don't play together. They were clear in that when the West Coast was saying nobody wants to talk to them, and they were saying that at some stage there could be a regulation that says somebody has to they have to consider you going in. So nobody's going to be left on the outside.
Councillor Hero.
I'm happy, sorry, some of the things I was thinking about,
Councillor Lambert.
Oh, yeah, it's sort of, what I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah, I was under the understanding the government's gonna step in if we don't do anything. So as difficult and as awkward as it is, I think it's really, really important we keep talking. You know, like even if it does get awkward or sticky or.
And the one thing too that has been requested is that we do keep iwi informed of where that's going and whether they've got any views as to whether there's likely partnerships across boundaries or not. Which is obviously something that the government is trying to take on board as well, so we need to do that as well.
But just bear in mind, this isn't going to proceed at pace. The economic regulator is still not defined and won't be looking for definition until 2025. So, it is a frustration for a number of parties as well. Councillor Hero.
So just going to some more clarity, so I see you said that the government is saying that iwi discussions will be taken into consideration because there are, within this region, there's a very clear collaborative of iwi that sit within the Rangitike whanganui. So there's a very clear connection between those iwi across the board.
Our understanding was that as part of the Three Waters discussion, were being approached by that agency, not us. But now, because that's gone, there will be an obligation put back on us to ensure that's done as well. So that's something that we will need to go out. And again, if it goes across boundaries, we will need to talk across boundaries as well.
So thank you. Councillors, are happy if we move on to 7?
7, okay. Yeah, so I've just made a note there about the progress between ourselves and Manawatu with the shared service arrangement. So I'm happy to stop there and answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
And just so, reading through that, so the clarification is that will be terminated as is, and we'll just go, we will continue with animal control, and they will supply environmental health services, and that will be it as far as shared. Thank you.
Is there anything you further wish to illustrate around staffing or anything like that?
No, just to advise that myself and Sharon did meet with some of the affected staff last week. And so they're now being given the change process document for their consideration. They've got a 2-week period to do that and come back with any questions relating to either us or NDC. So we're just working through that process at the moment. Okay, so and the next one then relates to roading procurement, and we've attached the letter that Waka Katahi sent out.
It's an endorsement of a process that we've got to. It is a huge relief to see a formal endorsement, because if that hadn't appeared, we've gone from option A to option B to wherever next would be difficult. Councillor Dalgety.
I was just interested around the streetlight maintenance contract. And we signed a contract for 9 years. Did we consider a 5-year term?
No, it was 3 + 3 + 3.
Yeah, that's what I remembered.
Okay. I'll just move on to submissions. So thank you to everybody that did provide feedback on the ones that we have now lodged. So if you ever want to view a copy of the rest of them, they're all on our website. Upcoming legislation, we've covered off the Maori wards, where you will receive a paper next month. And then there's just some highlighted ones of ones that we have flagged to us that are coming up in the future. So we'll just keep listing those. And just to acknowledge that Turubuahita has also now asked if they can receive a copy of the submissions that are coming through council, and they can see a copy of that. And we're also sending them the draft submissions for their input as well for relevant ones.
Is that a question, councillor Rakawa?
Yes, yes, it is, sorry. Got one way. Sorry to go back, I'm just thinking about, number 3 in the report. Is there any chance, is there a by-election, now that you've said there's a by-election, is it official, is it actually happening, there's no, couldn't ask somebody to come back on to the board? Okay.
I'm
Kia
happy
ora.
to speak to that. So within, if an elected member resigns within 1 year, we can ask council to either hold the vacancy or run a by-election process. Because it's 18 months, we have no option but to go through a by-election. The nominations actually opened today and they'll close in the middle of May. We've been liaising with Charlie Metty from Ratana Community Board. So he's got posters now and images for the Ratana Facebook page, and there'll be a publication coming out with the official notice in it as well. So we've kicked off that whole process.
Thank you.
And if we don't receive any nominations, we have to repeat the process.
That's right. And if we only receive one, then we don't go through the actual election or voting.
And the other end of the spectrum, if somebody resigns within 3 months of the election period, then you don't have to fill it. So I think it's 3 months, isn't it?
Well,
I thought it was shorter than that. But there is a time period at the, in the triennium, if somebody resigns, you don't have to fulfill it.
so just the last section there, I've just asked Jared to provide a regular update on where we're at with these buildings. So we'll just keep reporting that through the chief executive reports each month. Even if there's nothing to say, we'll still make sure that something's covered in there.
Thank you. Anything further? Would somebody like to receive thank you, councillor Duncan, councillor Rakawa, those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. We've dealt with 10.1, the declaration. We've dealt with 11. 11.2, the project management office report. Adina is on this list. How you going to take us through it?
Obviously, this report was not produced by me, but I'm happy to take on board any questions that the council may have. We've got a few of us in the room with knowledge of a lot of the projects, but happy to come back with any answers to easy questions.
Councillor Wilson.
Couple of quick questions, both Taipi related, Taipi Papakai, wastewater and the wastewater treatment plant membrane replacement. Both of those 2 contracts appear to be nearing completed, if not nearly completed. Will we see those signed off with the associated budgets completed in this financial year? Yes. No carryovers on those expected or anything isn't fully signed off? Yes. Cool. Excellent. Thank you.
Anything further? I have one, but councillor Dalgety.
I'm just interested with the decision to redevelop here rather than in town, and just reading through some of the submissions. Do you think what is our comms been around this? My impression was that people were not understanding it was saving us a lot of money coming up here.
So is the question about what comms we have put out there?
Yeah, and do you think that the public understand the significant savings that will be made by relocating to here rather than proceeding down there?
Yeah.
Well, it's been illustrated at every public meeting and within the long-term plan, so, and comms, etc. So how else could we portray?
That's certainly been the message as part of the decision was around the affordability.
Okay.
It's really, we should get, the other thing that was, the comms were focused on was that what we were hearing is the public didn't want to see a gap as to what was happening down here. So we then said that we've proceeded to put those, go ahead and get that real estate people appointed to market those, so they knew something was happening, because the fear was, says we walk away from it and then leave it. So what we've tried to do is run those, so I don't know whether that's confused those
Oh,
people.
okay. Thank you very much. Yep.
Councillor Moore.
Yeah, on that one, at our last meeting or one of the workshops, we talked about the change in the heritage listed buildings in Wellington. I see down in Bluff, they managed to get a category 2 heritage listed building demolished for a big new oyster competition farm. I think one of the feedbacks from the workshop or wherever we talked about it was staff go and investigate that process. Is that happening, or do I have to formally ask it at a council meeting?
Formally asked, but there's certainly been some work done on that heritage. But the reality is, we are the councillors now, that could be an advantage to a purchaser or a disadvantage. So until we're into that realm as to what sort of registration of interest that you might get, I'm not sure that taking any deliberative action would be the right thing right now. So there is a background information as to what they were prepared to support, and Mayor Andy was aware of that. And so we'd taken that basically as far as we wanted to if we were the owners.
First of all, you have to be very cautious about comparing one situation to another, even within heritage listed buildings. So for instance, a building can be heritage listed and its destruction ordered by the chief executive of the authority under safety and risk to human life. That's one end of an extreme, where if the chief executive can either close a building because of its earthquake risk, or potentially could order its demolition. So for instance, if you have a cathedral or something like that that is damaged and then poses a subsequent risk, or has deteriorated to such an extent that it becomes a human life factor, a council can order its demolition. That becomes into a very grey area that heritage have. However, it can't just order a demolition of a building unless there are grounds for that. You would have to go through a resource consenting process to achieve that. So you can get the term demolition by neglect. However, the minister responsible now for earthquake prone buildings, Mr. Peck, has deemed that there is that the National Party want to review the legislation surrounding earthquake prone buildings and the justification for it. And there's a whole lot of different parameters that they may or may not go down. One is high priority areas. Second one is the length of time you have something to do about it. But he's already said we're legislating to extend that. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Hill, or Councillor Wilson.
Just to note regarding the query from Councillor Moore, Council has made a series of decisions and directions around that, which has led us to the decision to redo this site here. One of those was the decision, and was an active decision of council, not to invest any more money in those buildings with regards to advancing anything further with heritage or resource consenting. And that was a report that was brought to us. An active decision was made by council not to go down that line, given the uncertainty of what those costs might have been.
Not quite. So council's resolution was that a maximum of $25,000 is available, which could be including real estate fees and any minor work that needs to be done. So there's the potential for staff to spend a little bit of money, but we put a cap on it.
Just could I further say that there was a decision that we no longer engaged with Heritage New Zealand about further advancing consenting for those buildings, and that was the fact that I was referring to, not for the cost of disposal that you refer, Your Worship.
And my question wasn't about, it was about whether we'd investigated nothing to do with heritage music.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harold.
I'm just interested in, the Ratana wastewater discharge to land, at the recent hui, in this, in the iwi consultation part of this, it talks about regular meetings and updates by email through hui. Two of the people that sit as, sit on a community board, or not, that's not the right word, on a committee that's, that goes around this project, were unaware and had not been approached for for quite a long time. And so, I'm just putting it there that, regular meetings, updates via email through hui, areas on board the project, they were not aware of a whole lot of things that were happening within that space. So I would just like to say it would be very good if our project leads are able to make contact with said people. They both sit on, two of them sit on the Ratana Community Board, and we had quite a big discussion around this at the last meeting.
Just a point of clarification around my understanding is that the community board were asked to name a representative or representatives on the working party. And if they elected not to name the people that you may have been talking to, does that fault lie with that community board?
So just to clarify, two of those people are actually community board members.
Yeah.
So they made it quite clear that they had been initially at the start, or whenever this project, with the project, they were put into a committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could comment.
Yes, certainly. Then I'll go to Councillor Loudon.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, this is, firstly, I want to take on board that we can definitely improve on communications, and we will do that. But I think the problem behind why there has not been a meeting for some time is we've submitted the application for the consent and we are all waiting, which means there's not much to report, and I would suggest that's the reason why they haven't had one. But we could always go back just via email to the group and say, there has been no news, it has been submitted, and we are waiting, and we will do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
Just regarding the update on the Marton Town Hall project, Marton Council Chambers. It says here peer review on cost estimate provided by architect is now complete. My concern is that we haven't seen any reporting since December, and there's no sort of flow of information coming from staff to councillors, and I think we need to be kept up to date more so as this unfolds, so that we can consider what is where this is going and how it's going.
I think the Chief Executive and I have similar views on this. The pass to the Chief Executive.
So we're keen to have a look at a bit of a reset on some of these projects, so that the council is clear from Taihebi. Council needs to be crystal clear as to where the procurement process takes us and the decision points that you're involved, and how we can have our project team moving alongside. So the project team might not include all councillors, but there'll be a day, like a day-to-day group that can be contacted, and then the council have touch points that we need to go back. So I think in terms of resetting, we just need to consider how we're doing that. So there are other parts of the project, like sort of checking out the contaminated site and that can sort of keep moving. But we will be bringing you back a much more comprehensive project. You'll see where your involvement is and what is expected of the council and our staff. So that'll give you a clear indication of which your decision points are and who's involved in the whole process and timeframes.
Go Councillor Duncan, then myself, Councillor.
Thank you. Just around the Taihape Pubkai Park wastewater pump station, regarding the other site work and landscaping that needs to be completed, I believe that Friends of Taihape are very keen to start on that work, and it says here that construction works have been completed. Can staff give me an indication of when the community group will get the go ahead to go onto that site? When will it be site safe? so that those works can be undertaken,
Landscaping, et cetera.
landscaping and finishing off.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion around that over the last week.
Mhm.
And there was a meeting in Taipei on Monday with the group and everybody else where they discussed that the biggest point of discussion at the moment is where the fence will go, because that will determine what the earthworks look like. Fulton Hogan said they will be offsite probably in the next 2 weeks. And then the other work can start. So we want them to complete the works that's covered under the contract first, and then we can do the other work. But all the parties were included in Monday. Everybody knows what's going.
Thank you. From me, in terms of staff, sorry, oh, sorry, I didn't see.
Oh, sorry, just to continue on the theme, Epikai Park, it says construction work is finished, almost finished. And the budget is 6.3 million, and we've spent 4.47 so far. Are there outstanding accounts, or are we way ahead on the budget?
I can comment on that too. The budget, when we set it, was against the backdrop of the unknowns of supply chains and COVID, and we were conservative in those numbers. Also, there was some smart engineering suggested by the contractor that saved us quite a substantial amount of money. So I think if you go back and look at the numbers, the contingency probably would have been quite heavy.
It has been reported to here.
That's right.
At the last project manager office meeting, I think, if there was a different design done for the
Tank.
state tank.
Well done.
So just we've known about
Yes.
that, we might have been right in the school. My question is, Potterino. So when I've had a little bit of a look back and review of Potterino project, it has been removed from the PMO reporting. And I think council, the governors are under the opinion that it has been closed and finished and done with. However, when I look back on those reports, it seems to illustrate to me that there may be soil that is potentially contaminated that is still sitting in a stockpile somewhere. So if I look back at the reports, that tends to indicate to me that we have a contingent liability somewhere. So what I would like to see is a report that comes back to us around the status of Potterino, and specifically, is there soil remaining anywhere that could be contaminated that hasn't been sieved or treated or sent to Bonnie Glen, an appropriate process followed? I just go to staff first. Is there anything that you can advise us on?
Unfortunately not, Your Worship, I'm not sure about the detail on this.
So we will take it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll follow it through.
Councillor Moore.
Just because I work out there, the site, as far as we know, as the farm operation has been cleared of all of the debris, but
It's where it's gone.
I don't know if we've had any official response to say that that's happened.
The issue seems to be that it was proposed to be sent to a particular site. And the owner of that site then said, I've changed my mind and don't want it. But then the reports seem to identify a fairly large tonnage material. And if it was subsequently treated or sent to Bonnie Glen or somewhere else, and the report is closed, then fine. But I just want to make sure that we are very tidy and with regard to some of these reports, and that's the process that the chief executive is interested in
Chief
as well.
Executive wants to consult with me on my own farm, and I'm happy to do that.
Councillor Louder.
I just, in a similar vein, I noticed that the Marton Rail Hub report has dropped off this reporting function. Does that mean that the Marton Rail Hub is closed and finished and done with?
At the last meeting, Adina made the point that this would not now considered a project in the project management office sense, and so it was being removed from that, and everyone was made aware of that.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, that was dealt with Good try. But no.
No conflict.
But it is appropriate, that anybody can ask, you know, for a briefing around whether it's likely to be or not be in terms of the wider commercial environment and whatever, that's fine. Would somebody like to move the receipts?
I'll just say there are some miscellaneous ones that
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you. That's
Just-
right.
talked about Scott's Ferry.
Yep.
And so there is some work going on behind the scenes to progress that project as we speak. To ensure that something is available or done that provides Scott's Ferry with some access routes out, but we are going through that process as we talk at the moment, so hopefully that'll be progressed well within the next month.
Question.
Actually, just on that one, and thank you. I acknowledge that you have made me aware of that. The biggest thing here is, are we relating this information down to the people of Scott's Ferry and say where we're at?
That's certainly what we're trying to do, as lickety split as we can.
Yeah, good.
But we need to tick
Absolutely
off
keep
some-
people in the loop. Thank you.
Further under miscellaneous. No.
Well, there's the Hautapu bridges were there, and it shows some of the work that's been undertaken with the concreting that's going in there. So remember, that has to be completed before the 1st of May, by understanding of the earthworks. So I don't know how far they've actually got through that. It was at the date on the 17th of this
Yeah.
month.
My understanding is they're meeting those deadlines. Yeah. So by a whisker, we comply. Anything further under 4.1, 4.2? Right, somebody like to so move that report. Thank you, councillor Duncan, moving, looking at second to that. Mr. Sharlin, do you want to go on record in your first meeting of receiving a report?
Yeah, I can do that for you.
We'll take you as a seconder to that. And those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 12, the minutes from committees. Would somebody like to so move as a block? Councillor Wilson. Thank you, councillor Moore, seconding. Do you wish to speak to it?
Bishop. I've read them word for word, they seem pretty accurate.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We have a number of items to discuss around public excluded. Would somebody like to move that we go into public excluded for the reasons given? Councillor Wilson.
Having seen inside of the public excluded minutes and documents, I'm happy to move, and happy that the resolution as stated in the order paper is an accurate reason to do so.
Thank you. Looking for seconder to that. Councillor Lambert seconding. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. What I do now is look to move to adjourn this meeting. Sorry.
Better go offline.
Yes, please.